Lingua Latina per se illustrata and Lingua Latina per se illustrata pars duo. Okay, so it's pars uno and duo. Okay. Well, I did a video a little while back on French using the natural method, okay? And it was a big fat book that starts you off on easy French, where you pretty much, you don't have to know a word of French to kind of get the gist. And then it goes through all the way until you're supposed to be reading at a pretty good level. Now, reading French isn't the same thing as speaking French, but you know, it's one of the four essentials: reading, writing, listening, and speaking. Well, with Latin, it's a little different because you don't really need to speak Latin. It's really much more about the reading. Rather, you don't really need to understand spoken Latin, or at least most people don't. And but this is the same method. In fact, I think the French method was sort of based on this one. I'll show you what I'm talking about. So it opens up with, well, let's look at the book as an object here. They're both pretty much the same. This is just part 1 and part 2. This is a hardbound book, printed on nice white pages. Big margins, so that they write in the margins here. And pretty easy text, as far as the font is nice and easy to read. Okay, but I'll show you what I'm talking about. So it starts with, I'm going to read it with a silly Latin accent, but okay. Roma in Italia est. Well, without knowing much Latin, especially if you come from English or a Romance language, you can probably figure out Rome is in Italy. Okay, so you're getting something there, but you don't translate it in your head. You just try to read it and say, oh, I actually understand what's happening here, without doing translation. Okay, that's kind of the goal here. Roma in Italia est. Italia in Europa est. Graeca in Europa est. Italia et Graeca in Europa sunt. Now, automatically you're thinking, whoa, sunt is different. But if you figured out, well, that means Rome is in Italy, Italy is in Europe, Greece is in Europe, Italy and Greece in Europe, that must be like are. It's like a plural. But if you can do it without getting in your head too much and translating too much, the point is that you're reading it and understanding it right from the get-go. You don't speak a word of Latin, and then you're sort of getting it. And you can read the whole chapter, and basically you've understood the whole thing without being taught anything, is the general idea. And then you go to the side and you try to figure stuff out from the sides, and then it gets a lot harder. And believe me, at some point you do actually have to figure out, well, what does that word mean? I don't really get what they're saying. At least I do. I don't understand that. And then there gets into all kinds of, Latin is a highly inflected language. It means that every word changes depending on what part of the grammar it means, and there is a lot of learning to do. It's not like, oh, well, you just read all this and you read all through, and then now you understand Latin. It's not exactly that easy, but that's the sort of the gist is that you learn from this input, this comprehensible input. Okay. Anyway, that's what these two books are. Lingua Latina. Familia Romana, so this first part is talking all about a Roman family, okay, and all their slaves and what have you, and how they live their lives and what happens. And then this one is more actual writings in Latin, so there's Ovid and Livy and Cicero and all these people, Virgil, etc. So this second part is, okay, you've gotten past this first part where it's like a story about a family and it's really written to teach you, whereas this one is actual writings, and they still teach you with all the side stuff and everything. So okay, that's enough. I think we get the gist. Lingua Latina, Familia Romana, and Roma Aeterna.